front and center. Very nice.
All right, we're ready.
Okay. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and
justice for all. Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Doug, and
now we know everybody's got pants on too.
Yes, that's good. That's very good.
oh, God.
In lieu of a COVID check, we'll go with a pants check. That's right. Did we have minutes for the June meeting?
Charlie, we've got them, but we didn't get them out yet, right, Charlie?
Yeah, sorry guys, I've been working from home, so my files are on my desktop computer.
Okay.
But
Well,
next week I'll get them out to everybody.
we'll just push that to December's meeting then.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have an educational program at
Nope.
this time. We'll go on to the committee reports from Legislative Committee. Mr. Moats.
Yes, so a number of us did get a chance to meet with Representative Salka and Representative Miller. And to get ready for that, we took the Rural School Boards Administration. They have a very good policy paper that they just published this summer. Doug was able to direct us towards that. And to meet with our local legislators, we picked the top 4 topics. State aid funding reform with a commitment to fully funding foundation aid, broadband expansion, improving retention of staff, and mental health opportunities and staff access to all students. Those were the 4 things that we presented to our legislators, and we had some interesting meetings with our legislators. And then this last Monday, we met with New York State School Board's representative, John Daly, and Alicia Artisan. Brian Fessler just came back from leave, and so he will be our legislative contact. Some of the things that they suggested, so we talked about coming up with a legislative agenda. Some of the things that they suggested would be, of course, anything related to COVID, IDA pilot reform, making that more transparent for schools, small group health insurance. Although I'm a little confused because I thought they said that was okayed for another 3 years. But I had down my notes that they suggested that we'd continue pushing on that so that that they wouldn't have to reapprove that every 3 years, that they could make that codify that as a permanent an issue. Of course, the tax cap, and right now it's the lesser of CPI or 2%. And so they thought this might be a good year to kind of push for that. And then they talked a little bit about some progress that's been made in the past. They think that there is some momentum about a full phase in of the formula over the next 3 years. But we did talk a little bit about, one of my concerns is full phase in of the foundation. Sounds wonderful until you wonder what does that mean exactly? What formulas are they going to use? And so we'll need to see if we can do some research about coming up with a formula or an implementation of the foundation aid that's fair and equitable to all of our schools that have been losing our WADA. And so we'll be sure and follow up on that. We also talked a little bit about broadband expansion, and they're on that. And they made a thing about S4962. That's a Senate bill, the administrative bill 5062, which let's see, it's schools improved access to statewide immunization database. And apparently this allows nurses to be able to directly go into the databases and not have to manually type student information in. And apparently that's a bill that did get passed. And so we'll need to make sure that we thank our legislators. Apparently it was kind of a no-brainer. Nobody was really against it. It just needed to get codified and needed to get done. So we had a good productive meeting with John and Alicia, and we have some things we need to follow up on. And our next legislative meeting is October 12th, I believe. that we'll be meeting with everybody to begin work on our legislative paper. Doug?
And Tom, that's the meeting. We also invite the school superintendents to the representatives.
Yes.
If they haven't shown up the last several years, but Brian
showed up to one last year, I believe.
But we do invite them. Yes.
Yeah. And so we'll be working on the legislative paper for that. And of course, everybody's invited to those meetings. Doug, anything else to add?
Go ahead.
And one other paper that we gave to John Salka about the numbers of, I have it with me now. The numbers of the counties, what has broadband, has internet access and has no internet access. And the numbers were Heather Mahoney from here at Madison and Oneida-Madison, from our RIC, gave us some numbers that were a little bit out of the realm, I'll call it, because they were in the 10 and 15 and 20%, which I thought it would have been higher, people without internet access and everything else. But this is just like a preliminary, because really we don't know until we get a little farther and get more data on it. But I know Tom and I gave that to Assemblyman Salka, a copy of that. I'll get a copy to Jim, and then he can get it out to us, or Charlie, and he can get it out to us and show a little bit what's going on there. But it was interesting numbers. They were in the 10 to 15 to 18 percentage points for all the counties in the region, including Fulton, including Jefferson, Oneida County, Otsego County, which was kind of strange, but they are preliminary. So we'll continue to report on that, because that's definitely with our broadband. We need to have numbers that we can talk to our legislators about with, confident numbers. These are the numbers. What can you do to help us here? Because that's what they're looking for.
Hey, and Doug, with the broadband, part of that is it may be 20%, but again, in this area where a lot of families are struggling, they have broadband for a month and then they don't pay the bill, and then it gets cut off.
Right.
And then they don't have, while technically it goes to the house, they're not receiving the service. So
Right.
One of the things with our legislators is with that federal money, there was $60 billion embedded in that to help families in need, where they can, I believe it was like a $30 a month rate for, for their broadband. So, that's the other side of it. Our legislators will have a direct, because that's going to have to be, directed through them, right, Doug?
Yes. Yeah.
The biggest thing I hear from all of my neighbors is that the service is terrible. They don't have reliable internet. They can't get on and off and do things when they want to, whether it's a home or a business or anything.
It's slow, right, Rich? Yeah.
Well, it's slow or non-existent. I mean, there's times that some of them, I go see them about 6 in the morning and they can't even do anything.
It was nice talking to Assemblyman Miller, because he said he's in the same boat. He's an assemblyman and he can't get access to reliable internet at his house also. So sometimes it doesn't matter who you are necessarily.
Yeah, Rich, they call that, it's not a very robust connection.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tom,
Yes.
I know we talked to governmental relations. They did say that the small group health insurance was signed into law, but you're right. You'd like to clarify that with somebody. I think they said that it was signed into law August, but yeah, you'd like to verify that to make sure that it's good for the 3 years.
Because I have in my notes, it was only good for 3 years, and then they were pushing to make it a permanent thing. At least that's what I thought I heard. But
because in one of the last meetings, they said yes, that both houses had passed it and it was sitting for the governor. And with the turmoil of getting out of Dodge, you don't know what was left on the desk and what wasn't.
Tom?
Yes.
That small group insurance, could you just explain that, what that is relating to in our
I
school?
couldn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you just explain what that is relating to in our schools? Is what they mean by small group health insurance?
If you have an organization of less than, I believe it's 100 employees.
It's 100, Tom.
Is it 100?
Yes.
Yeah. And which a lot of our schools are, you can piggyback on other healthcare insurance plans and give you a much lower rate on it. And that's what that legislation allowed them to do, to be able to get much lower rates for their employees, for the smaller school districts.
Basically, that means that they can be part of the consortium. Is that correct? For example?
I don't know about that. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I
that would
think-
be,
I think that is true, because I think Stockbridge was mentioning that a few years ago. And
that would be one option, Tom. Correct.
Mhm.
Yes.
Which typically is the cheapest option in most cases. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
I also wonder with the foundation aid, I wouldn't doubt that Rick Timms is somewhere has got a poker in the fire. He might be able to give us a little bit of information next week. Is what, calculations or new information that they may be looking to use.
Yeah, and Rick's also going to talk about the tax cap, making sure that people, because you've got some federal money, some people think they need to be a little flush. And the key is not to forget, in a couple of years when that money dries up, you want to make sure you run that tax cap, as best you can as far as the numbers go, because what you leave on the table, you never get back. Right, Robert?
Yeah. I think that's printed on the back of Rick's cards.
Yeah.
You have anything else, Mr. Moats?
Nope, I do not.
Any questions for Mr. Moats? Okay, well, moving on to the membership committee, Mr. Huxtable.
Yes. About this time each year, I'm asked to write a small, succinct thank you to all of our family members who support us during the year. And I suppose it should be out in bold letters this year because in many cases it's been a tough year for everybody. Do you still want me to do that? I don't hear a
Yes.
Really?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Especially for newer members who aren't quite sure how potentially thankless the job is.
No, I think
Well put, Robert. You've been on the board a few years, obviously.
Well, hey, we've been lucky thus far that we haven't any, contentious board meetings, but I bet there's a few around the screen that has. That's right. And I thank goodness for that for us thus far.
So, Tom, I think you have our permission to do your annual greeting, and then we send it out, Charlie, right? Charlie will, we may send it out during Education Week, which is last week in October.
right. Actually, it's National School Board Week.
Right. Yeah.
Or at least state school board week.
Correct.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. I don't have any, was there anything else that, Jim, that you wanted to add and under membership? Have we got everybody?
Charlie, we've sent the trifold out, but obviously we've done it electronically over the last few years. So hopefully that has permeated one of your board packets going home. So, and basically it's just a review of the history, our governing structure, and our three our three pillars, which is, communication, advocacy, and education for our board members. So
I make copies of those. So if anybody needs a physical copy, let me know. And I mean, obviously we haven't gotten together in person, but I can get them to you guys.
thanks, Charlie. And then we were doing certificates up until last year. And again, with the Zoom model, I mean, while attendance has been, pretty strong for certain events, we're putting that on hold until we get more of an in-person platform. If anybody has, thoughts on that, we can certainly resurrect it and change our direction. But, Zoom is kind of a new experience.
I mean, I don't mind that they're on hold, and I think sometimes it shows a little bit better when you mail them back to the home schools so that they're handed out at a board meeting. So that way, we've said before, there's several old guard around the table, and you might pique someone's interest as to what that is to maybe get some new young blood to help out. Otherwise, sending them home is nice, but at least having the clerk or the superintendent mention it, hand them out at a board meeting might be more handy.
Well, we can take a look, right, Charlie? We've got a registration from our different activities. So, Robert, not a bad idea.
I mean, even if it's toward the end of the year, or,
Right.
Maybe we
Right.
get lucky to have it in
Yep.
person, but,
Yeah. And maybe next May we could have it ready for, and it would be our COVID alignment 2-year profile. You know how they have the asterisk for, the home runs? We could have an asterisk for
That's
our
right.
board education. All right. Thank you, Robert. Charlie, we can start doing that maybe. Okay. We can come up with a profile. And I like the idea of Robert sending it to the clerks to read at a board meeting.
You might need more than an asterisk. I think you might need a pound sign and an exclamation point and a couple other things to, that way everybody will know what it is.
All right. And Tom, the only other thing was our
Right.
in-person convention, which has been canceled. So
Is that,
Tom, yes, they canceled it. We just got we all got a notice about an hour ago.
oh, hadn't seen that.
Yeah, the in-person is canceled. They're going to run it virtually like they did last year, Tom.
Okay. Do we get any money back or?
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, any funds that went down for hotel rooms and for registration, definitely getting back. They had a certain date established, but this beats that date, so.
Uh-huh. Yep. All right. I see that's,
A party.
We ought to have a heck of a fun somewheres.
Yeah.
Be a good barbecue at the end of this, run. Okay, any questions, for Mr. Huxtable? Okay, we'll move on to program committee. We'll go to Bob Maxwell.
Well, due to COVID, we haven't had a meeting in forever, and one of our members is recuperating from a stroke, I hear.
Yeah, well, yeah, actually what we're gonna need, Bob, we're gonna need a Madison County representative. Like Bob said, this doesn't take a lot of time because especially now, we're doing a lot of our committee work through Zoom. So we're really would like to get a Madison County rep. And I don't see a Madison County person here.
Thank you. Fucking Rosie's back.
Oh, you know what we could do? And sometimes when they're not at a meeting, that's when they get elected or appointed. Remember Bob Group a couple of years ago? Bob
Yeah.
was one of the past president,
Yeah.
Sure.
and he's in Madison County. and he's given up his painting business. So I think Bob may have a couple of hours to spend with us, especially Bob Maxwell, if we continue with the Zoom. So,
Right.
Either that or you got Steve Bodell from Morrisville.
pardon me?
Steve Bodell from Morrisville's back on their board.
Oh,
He was
yeah, that's right.
second-
Steve came back on. You're right.
Yeah. Either one.
I think that's a great idea to nominate someone while they're not here.
I thank you, Katrina.
Yeah.
Mr. Batson,
all
I'm
the
going to
others. It's
nominate
just-
Robert Group, okay? For our program committee, Madison County representative.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah.
You all set, Charlie? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Listen, as far as this development training, we've got those programs already scheduled. And again, until further notice, we will make sure everyone's aware. We will do it through Zoom. Our FOT and our new school board training in June went very well. The presenters really like it because obviously, they can present the program from their home. So, and the board members, we did a survey afterwards and they were very appreciative of the time and what they learned. So, again, unless things change dramatically, we will continue next June for our newly elected school board members through our program in Zoom. We've got about 7 members that we're working with for a makeup. Remember, there are 6 different sessions, and again, things happen. So we got a couple of people who missed session 1 and 2, or 3 or 4. So we make sure we have them all set. They will be ready to go by November, and they will have their certificates. So, okay. And the other thing is on our calendar, a couple of changes. Obviously, we have Rick Timms next Thursday. Rick's going to be presenting on our federal funding, and also in November, we have the chancellor who is going to address our group again through Zoom. Okay, so Regent Hankinson will be introducing the regent, but he will be doing all of the talking for SED, let's put it that way, that night. And we will be able to have a Q&A with him too. So
Very nice upgrade, Jim.
thank you. Yeah, thank you, Robert. So
Will she get his name right?
hey, let's be nice.
It was.
All right.
We will be nice.
Our Genesis education, right now, Ray Durso is going to try to do an in-person, but with things starting to collapse from a large scale, I think it's going to be a wait and see. There's a meeting next Tuesday at Harts Hill, so I will be able to have more information on that. And Tony Nicotera, who's our second vice president, is co-chair of that event. So I got a question for you, as long as we're here. How many people are allowing outside groups into your schools for meetings, et cetera?
You mean like community during the board
Yes.
meetings?
Yeah, like a community group, like Boy Scouts, a PTA even.
We've been having students and other speakers come to our board meetings from the public, during the public session, and the
Yeah.
students stay there for their government class.
Right. Okay, so you're still doing in person, right, Katrina?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Richfield allows sports boosters, PTA, music boosters, and we're also in person.
Yeah, in the building, right, Scott? Okay, all
Correct.
right. Good to know.
Mount
Jim Clinton is allowing people into our meetings
You are,
on
okay.
site.
All right. So at least the consensus, Charlie, is that people are,
So is TVA.
yeah, keeping their buildings open for outside groups, at least for now.
Hamilton is still in person right now too.
Okay, thank you.
Mount Markham is also, but we do require masks for attendance at our meetings.
Right. Yeah, well, I think everybody's masked up now, I mean, that's just a given now, but. Okay, well, thank you. That certainly helps because we've gotten calls from districts wondering what other people are doing. So we've got a pretty good representative sample now that we can refer to.
I'm curious what each BOCES facility is doing. Are they have the same rules? I mean, I know we're playing in different counties, so I was curious how that, I mean, certainly Oneida appears to be very tight about stuff.
Yeah. Again, Robert, they were Scott Morris, who is now the assistant superintendent for business plus technology plus. Said that, yeah, they had to carve their room up to address COVID testing and COVID the testing procedure because they've got that grant that handles the whole 13 districts. So I guess that's where people are going to be going for their weekly tests. So I think Herkimer, Charlie, is open, correct? The large rooms there for events.
Yeah, we're fully back in person. So, I mean, like honors programs are coming. So that means presenters from all over will be coming. The students will be traveling. So as of right now, everything's
Right.
still open.
And I think Madison, Doug and Rich, I don't think you're doing large groups, but the transportation center is open though, correct?
Yes. Yes, a general rule of thumb is we try to keep everything as open as we can until we're told not to.
Okay, yeah, I believe in the asking for forgiveness versus permission too, so.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that's all I have on the program review. Bill Miller was going to try to give us an update, but I'm sure he's getting a few phone calls regarding the cancellation of the convention.
I don't doubt it.
Can we, Robert, can we move down to a roundtable?
Sure. Let me go around the table, and I know everybody's screen is a hair different, so I'll try and go off of mine and point it out going around. Madison and Oneida BOCES.
Right. I think the only thing that I think we really got to keep track of is that I see no way that a year or two from now, there's going to be some major adjustments. Besides classrooms and education financially, I think you just got to keep your eyes open because I don't see any way that it's going to be any different. This can't last what's going on.
As far as the money flowing in, you mean, Rich?
Everything, how you're spending it, how it's coming in. I didn't think we'd get through with as few problems as we got now. In fact, actually, I think we're pretty much in pretty good shape, but I don't see how it can stay that way.
Yeah. I mean, Rich, there's no doubt the feds. I mean, again, we talked about it in December when it was doom and gloom and going off the fiscal cliff, and we certainly was able to prevent that. And again, with Rick's program coming up and with the business officials, as long as you use it judiciously, it should be a 22, 23, 24 lifeline. Again, Rich, and what happens in 20, 25, 26 is anybody's guess. So
That's about when the state will run out of money.
yeah.
Well, they're already out. They're just lying to us, but it's the way it is.
Right. Yeah, you got that right.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Rich.
Mr. Maxwell.
Well, you were talking earlier about internet connections. We were kind of lucky in our school district. The Spafford's portion of our school district now has Verizon Fios, which is actually even better than what we have in the village for Spectrum. And it was really based on some federal monies that provided Verizon with extra money to put it in rural areas, because where these people live, there virtually is no cell phone service at all. No company works at all there. We gave the kids these Kajits or some kind of hotspots to take home, and they didn't even work. So they were really out in left field in the rural areas of our school district. So at least those people have access to purchase internet services now, which is kind of uplifting. And
Robert, I cannot believe they've got Verizon BIOS out there.
I know we don't
Holy cow.
we don't have it in the village of Dollarville, but they have it in Pleasant Lake, New York.
We don't have it anywhere along the thruway from Albany through Syracuse.
I know.
Wow.
And it's
Wow.
high speed,
Wow.
You know, I know. But it was due to some federal legislation to provide it to rural areas. And
Well,
What Hills of the Adirondacks is pretty rural.
Right. But good. Okay. That's good to know, though. I mean, again, when we talk to our legislators, that's kind of a benchmark we can mention, you know, oh, by the way, you know, we've got a certain area that's got Verizon BIOS now because of some, you know, some funding. So
Our school business manager lives in that area, and she has it installed now. Instead of having a satellite dish and big antennas and all that sort of thing.
yeah, wow, nice.
Scott?
Hey, how are you? I'll just mention that in Richfield, we use the Verizon hotspots, and in Valleys, that doesn't work. So it affected our students, which ended up driving to the parking lot of Richfield and used the Wi-Fi from the school in the parking lot, which was, you know, it helped, but now you gotta expect someone to drive your kid there, right? Or you have to take the time to do that. You know, everything you guys are mentioning, the funding sources in 3 years or broadband, that's all things that happen to Richfield as well. But also in Richfield, I don't know what you guys are finding with sports, but we have a lot of students that aren't interested, or our numbers for the district are just down, that it's affecting things like soccer where you need 11 players out on the field. And we're fielding teams, the full team with 9 and 10 players. So then you hope that the other team will cut back. And then also injury or, you know, grades or whatever. Now all of a sudden you're not able to play. And not only have we are playing games that way, but we're also playing against teams that are just not going to play because they don't have players. So I think we need to look at, and I think it takes groups to make this push, but maybe going to whoever and asking if maybe like 8-man football, we do something with soccer now for our smaller school districts that are being affected by that. And I'm talking about soccer, but it could be some other sports as well. I don't know if that's affecting anyone else too.
I haven't seen.
I know Frankfurt Schuyler had to cancel football because of that.
Yeah, right.
And if we want to provide activity and opportunity for students, we need to create a whole program, and that includes athletics and obviously the educational component as well.
One of my coworkers here is in Sequoia, and he said that the Sequoia cross-country program, I think they said he has 1 girl, and there's not even a JV program this year, and they've had a huge program for years.
Yeah,
and sometimes you won't be able to even run that without 4, you know, 4 kids. And you know, combining of teams, which we've done many times with either Mount Markham, ODY, Cherry Valley, and Cooperstown, that's great, but that's like a stopgap or a Band-Aid. We just need to have a bigger conversation, and somebody needs to help drive that conversation, because I don't think it can be just Richfield making that push or making those requests.
Scott, we've got a couple of soups that are on the Section 3 executive committee. So I mean, if that's something that people feel it's worth moving, at least making people aware, we can send a letter to them and saying, hey, we've got obviously some number issues because of COVID and a host of other reasons, and maybe give them a couple of suggestions, I guess. Is that something you would like us to do?
I think it has to happen, and we are actually in the Tri-Valley League, so we're in Section 4 now.
Right.
But,
I mean, the numbers are not limited to you, Scott. I know that.
Right, so Remsen had to, they tried to play Waterville, I know, from our principal, and they just canceled the game because Remsen couldn't field the team.
Right.
So it's not just affecting
Oh, yeah.
Richfield as we talked
Okay,
about.
all right. We can do that.
Katrina, I can just comment. I can get a hold of, we actually did a study before COVID, so it would have been fall of 2019. The statistics class collected data because that was a concern in Westmoreland, and they have a report on it, from questioning students. So that would be interesting for you all to see. And then, a lot of it came down to some kids just aren't involved in club sports, and other kids feel a little intimidated to go out. But I think probably the biggest difficulty during COVID was all the feeder programs weren't there. Right. And, just so kids, just aren't in it, or they got out of shape. I can speak on behalf of my son. He actually played more sports. He played spring football, and he hadn't played football since he was in Pop Warner, 6th grade. And then he also played baseball, and he hadn't played that since T-ball. So, there were a few other kids too who we have some kids on our soccer team who never played soccer since they were 4, but they're on the team because they were just so excited to get back into a sport. So I think,
What's interesting in Richfield is we've had kids on the team 3 years, and they're seniors, and this year they're just not playing.
Yeah, no, we actually have a really big soccer team, and as far as I know, football, they lost some kids, but they had such a great season in the spring. They went 5-0, and we're on, it just invigorated them. But we have had, prior to that, we had very lean years, and we did have to combine our soccer with Oriskany.
I wonder,
combined with Oriskany too, right?
Yes.
I wonder, is anybody having trouble fielding bus drivers for the sports runs?
We're having trouble fielding bus drivers.
Period.
Yeah.
I think part of too with the sports is what I have heard too from some of the kids is that there's such talk of the gloom and doom of sports being shut down. The kids, why am I going to put all this effort into something that may not actually happen? I think that may be part of it also.
Sure.
I mean, I know we've got good numbers right now for our varsity football, but I can tell you, as somebody involved with it, they start mandating testing, and we're going to lose, I'm going to say, at least a good 15 kids.
Wow.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Parents are just, I mean, you've probably seen, we've had some board meetings that got a little crazy. Yeah. I actually got a personal text message, 2 of them from one of the parents. The first one that I was a hypocrite because I'm putting together a military first responder appreciation day. And then the second one, I was called a communist. Because I'm making them wear masks and I'm taking away their fundamental rights and freedoms.
The whole Hamilton school board are communists as well. And we got the Constitution thrown at us, and we had a whole 2-minute board meeting before we had to adjourn last month. So.
Wow.
Like,
That's got to be a record.
I think it was. It's recorded, still posted it.
We have a meeting Tuesday, so I'll let you know what that happens with our meeting.
Okay, Mr. Head.
Yes. Well, actually, Whitesboro sports teams are doing quite well as far as participation. We have our first home game with fans in the stands in 2 years. So that's Friday night. We're looking forward to that. And on the note of the lack of bus drivers, my daughter's teaching at, I know you don't want to hear this, but it's a charter school, and it's involved with the Utica district. The kids aren't getting there till 10 o'clock in the morning
Oh, wow.
because of the lack of bus drivers. She got 4th grade kids.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's, I don't work in the Rome district, but I do work part-time at the YMCA, and they have kids not getting picked up from the Child Watch program and taken to their elementary schools until 10:30. So they're just, yeah, so I know Rome is having a horrible
Crazy.
time as well.
It's crazy. We're lucky. We
Contracted with a bus service.
It's bad all around.
It's just,
Okay, Mrs. Burdick.
Sorry, I lost my mute button there a minute.
Uh-oh.
Well, honestly, I have to say, listening to some of the concerns around the table, we're having a fairly successful back to school right now. Our sports teams are coming out. Our quarantines have been, actually no quarantines as of yet. There's been a couple
Wow.
positive tests, but no quarantines necessary. We are struggling with the bus driver situation, like everybody. But we're sort of making it work in a round robin sort of way. We also see a lot of parents driving kids to school right now, so.
Have you had a lot of people at your board meetings calling you communists, Megan, and no?
No, there was something else, Jim. I was listening around the table, and we've been fortunate in Clinton. Dr. Grimm did, make a point very proactively to kind of set aside parent forums and family forums and, different venues. So the public at large didn't feel the need to come to the board meeting per se to voice their concerns. So our board meetings fortunately have been able to conduct board business, which is good.
Megan?
Yeah.
Sounds like, I'm not sure what district you're from, but sounds like Lake Wobegon, is that?
Yeah, we're up in Minnesota.
Yeah.
This is the Minnesota School Board Institute, right? Did I dial into the wrong Zoom meeting? No, Tom, I'm in Clinton. I'm in
Okay.
Clinton, so.
And Tom, you know how we all have peaks and valleys? It wasn't Lake Wobegon about 4 or 5, 6 years ago. Right?
That's
Megan?
right. It's our turn now to.
You're at the
enjoy
top of that
in the
wave.
sun.
Yeah.
We had the third forum.
Fiona, I like your prospective board members right there. 2 of them. I like it.
There's your membership committee.
Very, very busy one also, sir. Very busy. Try to get into the community service at a young age.
Okay, Mr. Jones.
Not much. Our sports numbers are actually okay. We've already combined, but we've been doing that for years with some area schools and different things. Like our modified soccer numbers, for example, we have 20 kids. I don't think we've ever had like 20 kids on our modified team. So the same struggle with bus drivers, but we're finding a way to work it out. Fortunately, we have one of our teachers that loves to support the kids' sports, so volunteers to do a lot of our sports runs, which we're very, very grateful for. And so far, everything other than our crazy board meeting at the beginning of last month, everything with back to school is going pretty well, fortunately.
Good. Mr. Huxtable.
Yeah, Markham is, I think, I'll ask Jennifer, we've done all right. It sounds like, from what we hear around the table, we've got bus drivers, not too many, but we're getting the kids there before, on time now.
Yeah, yes. And getting them picked up too on time. So that's good. It's good.
And what else we got? What about next? Go ahead.
With regards to our board meetings, I found it interesting that we've had members of the public speaking out on both sides of the issue with masking. We had a college professor who lives in our district come and speak to us about the virtues of masking. And we had an RN who lives in our district come and speak to us about the detriments of masking. I mean, it's sort of an easy out, I guess, to say that we're controlled by the State Department of Health. So we are just following their guidance. Our hands are basically tied.
Right.
But it's been interesting to see both sides of our community. We have a very diverse community, and both people from both factions have definitely come out and said their piece and brought stuff to our attention. So we've been lucky to have a lot of spirited conversation going on about this subject.
Yeah, well put. Jennifer works in the lab at a hospital, so I think everybody that comes to speak knows they better know what they're talking about.
Well,
she might correct them.
Well, I mean, I guess from seeing it firsthand, I can say that I do believe masks work. The evidence I have for that is the fact that last year here in our hospital system, we had literally and throughout the whole state of New York, there was hardly any influenza. How do you prevent the spread of flu? You wear masks, you wash your hands, you stay away from each other. And the proof is evident because we didn't have any flu last year. Now, the coronavirus is obviously much more contagious and much more virulent than is the influenza. So, I mean, that's why it's still spreading, but those are still our best defenses, and there's really no arguing with that science. Thanks.
We do have, we're looking at December for, and Jennifer, you may be on that committee, but for a building project. So we're still trying to think positively and we'll see. That's correct. It's this December. Is that right, Jennifer?
I'm not on that committee, actually.
Okay. Neither am I. So, but
Capital Projects Committee. I think some other members are on those ones on that committee.
Well, good luck with that. Definitely. It's a long journey. Mr. Moats.
Yeah, a lot of the same issues. We had to cancel a football game because the other team didn't have enough players, and we've got some lower numbers. But we're very lucky in that our August board meeting was about a week and a half before the start of school, and we're having our next board meeting next week. So we really haven't, and it'll be virtual. So there's been a little bit of activity on some of the Nextdoor sites and the Facebook sites, and but mostly it's been, as I think Jennifer said, it's been there are people that on both sides of the issue, and our superintendent, Mrs. Group, has had a lot of town hall meetings. And I just thought it was so great because the way she's been running them is people don't get to speak. They have to write into her. And somebody asked the question, how dare you endanger our kids with masks? And aren't you concerned about the long-term harm? And her response was that if you're concerned about it, we're concerned about it too. And then she went to explain. And so I think that's been diffusing some of the vitriol from the community. And although we'll find out next board meeting whether that's really true or not, but things have been pretty quiet.
Mr. Levi.
Central Valley has been doing very well. Sports are going well on all levels, from varsity to JV, modified, all the way down to Pop Warner. Our numbers are very good. We have a lot of kids participating. We've only had a couple issues with COVID and people getting quarantined. We've only had small issues so far, nothing crazy, luckily. Busing's been pretty good. Little long trips in the beginning, but the kids are pretty resilient and they've been doing well. Funding so far is doing all right. Still looking to hire a couple teachers, I believe, for the school year. But overall, Central Valley is doing pretty well so far.
Good. Mrs. Main.
Nothing further at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Brodich.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Max Drive. So this worked out really well that it was a Zoom meeting. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I had to go up to Oswego to take something to my daughter. So I was happy I could still participate.
Nice.
I can't remember who mentioned it in their district that they've had both sides. So we had a survey for the public and it was 52% for masks against masks. And the same thing, we really just stressed how happy we'd be to have the kids in school all day. And, instead of all the other ordeal we had to go through, so that the mask would be worth that. And then of course the state came out with so that helped. And really it's sports and, some of the mask issues and COVID issues that have, that bring people to meetings, but they've been good. They've been good discussions, I think, overall. So again, just doing that outreach helps a lot. Overall, compared to what we thought with the doom and gloom, it is so much better this year. So so hopefully the other schools will be healthy and we can play them, and everybody will stay healthy and we'll get through it. And then we'll all have our immunity.
Very good. Mrs. Smith.
Hello, Holland Patton. We've had a few, I think about 17 positives in the school. There's been no transmission within the school, which is good.
Nice.
And I know that's great. And our interim superintendent, you know how the rule that they came out with is in the classroom, if there's a positive child, but you're all masked, no one has to quarantine. But if the teacher's not vaccinated, she has to quarantine. And so we've had a couple instances of that, which doesn't make any sense, and our interim superintendent has, fought it with the health department, and they have rescinded the quarantine because they were, 12 feet away from the kids during the class. They weren't even near them. And, the kids 3 feet from them don't have to quarantine and they're not immunized. So hopefully that's one of the things that I know she's very interested in trying to get changed. It's one of the recommendations that came down from the CDC. But again, doesn't really make common sense of why that person would have to, and especially with our shortages of teacher subs. So I know they've been working on that. And speaking about, like, the kids have been great. I know when we started football season, we have the masks that go on the helmets, and we had talked to the kids, like, it's not mandated, but here's the thing. If you have it on and one kid has COVID, you're not all in quarantine. So you're not going to be missing games. You're not going to be, and the kids all voted for the mask because they just want to play. Parents, many angry phone calls I got from parents. Why are you mandating this? It's not a rule. And it was just, we're trying to protect the season, and this is what the kids voted on. So yeah, I think a lot of times it's much more the parents than the children.
That's for sure.
Hey, Kathy, you're 72, or 76 kids, that's K-12, correct? That have been identified as positive?
No. 7, I said.
Oh, that's it? 7?
7.
Wow.
7. That's
Nice.
kids,
Yeah.
but we've had, I think we've had like 5 staff.
Right. The adults. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and actually, we started out the school year with like 12 kids in quarantine because of the week before school, they were all together at a party. So, you know, I mean, it's obviously coming from community, not school.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting to get some clarification about the kids being positive versus a teacher being positive, because you're right. You're scrounging for a warm body in the room. You'd like to keep the qualified warm body in the room.
Yeah. And if we're worried about the kids catching it. So the kid that's 3 feet from the positive doesn't have to do a thing,
Right.
but the teacher 12 feet away has to quarantine for 14 days. It makes no sense whatsoever. So I know she's trying to work on getting that changed, because again, you can get it, if you can get a sub, that's great, but you still want the kids getting the education from the teacher.
Yeah, definitely. Mr. Crandall.
Yeah, so down here in Herkimer, we have had the second year in a row where we've had no modified field hockey. We just haven't been able to field a team. And right up until the last day before our first game, we weren't sure if we were going to be having a varsity field hockey. But we had some girls talk to other girls, and we were finally able to have a team. They had that first game as a scrimmage. They were able to have the next game as a real game. But as far as the other teams, we've had pretty good turnout for all of them. As far as busing, we had a rough first week, but this next week we've had a lot better bus run timing, and we've had a lot of folks talk badly about the school district, about masks, about busing, about everything on Facebook, and saying that they were going to come to the meetings, and just having this big crowd of people. And we had a meeting last night and there were 0 people. So it's always, I wouldn't mind at all talking to people, but nobody shows.
Yeah, that's good, Brian. The social media aspect.
Yeah.
I want to add to that for Richfield too. A couple of things. We've only had 1 student that's been identified with COVID so far, and that person wasn't even in the building for like a week because they weren't feeling good. The people that have made the loudest noise or complained the most, they were probably homeschooling or virtual last year, and we haven't offered that option in this school year. So they either are in the building or they're homeschooling. And we only have 17 students this year, COVID family issue, that are homeschooling. So they just decided to do the homeschooling route. And then when people say they're going to come to our board meetings, we've only had 1 consistent person in our community that has attended board meetings for a long time. And then our teaching staff has attended as well. So.
There was a NISBA webinar about contentious meetings a couple of days ago that I kind of listened into in the background while I was working the other day. And it's probably stuff that most people are doing anyways, but it might be something to take a look at. I know they had a couple of PDFs and a PowerPoint to go along, but you know, about how to try and diffuse things. But again, that's going to be per each individual district's, you know, energy to deal with. Poland was in person all of last year, so the mask thing for us, I think, is minuscule, and the rest of you guys that were hybrid or back and forth are starting to really live that this year every day. But to me, it's not going to be the mask issue. It's going to be the vaccine mandate that's going to be the most contentious potential point going on. we're short of teachers as it is. I know everybody's short of bus drivers. I'm trying to look a little bit farther out and say, where are we going to be with teachers in, this year, let alone 3 to 5 years as the next group? I mean, I know in Poland, I think over the next 5 years, we've probably got, I don't even know, at least a quarter of our staff that's going to be retirement age eligible. When they mentioned something about a retirement incentive statewide, I'm like, who possibly wants that except for the teachers? I think every district is trying to entice any teacher they can to stay, with us for a year or two. Poland's also lucky that we must end up having a meeting toward the end of August, and our next public meeting is the end of September. So thank you, everybody else, for taking the heat and letting it dissipate before it gets to us. I think ours might even be September 30th. So we're a little lucky on that. We'll see how that goes, but I'll have my ears out for how things go for the rest of you guys. Jim, do you have anything?
No, I think that's it, Robert, except thank you so much for the invite for the discussion and the information. We can use that. We're going to send a letter to Section 3, just see if, we can get some help there, and just continue with Tom and his advocacy group. And our next meeting is December 6th through Zoom. Let's do it right now. So it'll be a Zoom. Okay, Charlie?
Okay, anything else for the good of the order? Okay, need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion, Katrina.
Second, Tom Huxtable.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Have a good one. Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Robert. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
You're welcome.